Hello everyone. Today is August 19th, 2010, and this is Global Government News. I'm Darko. Thank you for joining me in this news bulletin. I'll be covering conspiracy theories, the war on terror, liberty, sovereignty, and eugenics in this video. And this first article we have up is from August 16th. I saved it so I can cover it at a later time. It's titled Russia Wildfires Not Due to Climate Change, Scientists Say. But, double think, of course. When you go all the way down to the bottom, basically says it's difficult to establish all these links well and even more difficult to quantify them, but the evidence strongly suggests that global warming is playing a role. The way to think of it is that global warming exacerbates the other conditions that would be occurring anyway. It says the Russian heat wave was by some estimates in one in a 1,000-year event, but with global warming, perhaps it's only 1 in 10-year event. And see, the problem is that they still accept the theory of human-induced climate change. So that's the problem, I think. It says Russia's heat wave, drought, and wildfires by themselves are not signs of global warming, according to several leading climatologists, despite widely reported claims this week by a Russian scientist. But experts agree that overall, the climate indeed shows signs of human-induced warming, you see. Alexander Petrisky, the Kremlin's weather advisor and president of the World Meteorological Organization, said that Russia's recent spate of extreme weather, along with other natural disasters, including the recent flooding in Pakistan and France's 2003 heat wave taken together, are, quote, signs of global warming, according to the AP. But we move on to this article, which is interesting, from Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. And it's titled, Russian Scholar Warns of Secret U.S. Climate Change Weapon. And I think a lot of us that know about HAARP and cloud seeding, weather modification, we're kind of aware of this, or we're thinking of this during the floods in Pakistan are still going on. Also, this, quote, drought and these wildfires that were going on in Russia. I certainly was. It says, as Muscovites suffered record high temperatures this summer, a Russian political scientist has claimed the United States may be using climate change weapons to alter the temperatures and crop yields of Russia and other Central Asian countries. See, they're talking about Pakistan. In a recent article, Andrei Areshev, deputy director of Strategic Culture Foundation, wrote, quote, at the moment, climate weapons may be reaching their target capacity and may be used to provoke droughts, erase crops, and induce various anomalous phenomena in certain countries. Of course, this is true because, like I said, in Owning the Weather by 2025, Weather False Multiplier, the Air Force, and the researchers that presented this information to them, saying that the technology to create lightning, to modify weather, even earthquakes, is possible, and that is so great because of its anonymity, right? Nobody will really be able to prove or point to the culprit, and it's awesome for getting your enemy and coercing him to do what you want him to do without being blamed. The article has been carried by publications throughout Russia, including the International Affairs, a journal published by the Foreign Ministry and state-owned news agency RIA Novosti. And look here, it says in a telephone interview with RFE, it says Areshev appeared to back off from his claims he made in the article, saying that he was merely posting a theory. Well, of course. First of all, I would like to say that what I wrote in the article, even the citations, does not in any way claim to be the final truth. It is, if you will, speculation. In other words, the definition of a hypothesis. Areshev said Moscow is currently sweltering under record temperatures. On July 29th, Moscow suffered its hottest day ever, with temperatures hitting 39 degrees. In the article, Areshev voiced suspicions about the high-frequency active auroral research program, HAARP, funded by the U.S. Department of Defense and the University of Alaska. HAARP, which has long been a target of conspiracy theorists, analyzes the ionosphere and seeks to develop technologies to improve radio communications, surveillance, and missile detection. And you see, let me redefine this for you without all the mumbo-jumbo crap propaganda. It says, analyzes the ionosphere. Well, they're shooting radio frequencies that are pushing on the ionosphere and poking in and breaking through the ionosphere, a selective area. So they're not just analyzing it, they are manipulating it. And it says it seeks to develop technologies to improve radio communications, surveillance, and missile detection. No, what they're doing is they're trying to develop technology so that they can jam radars, communications, surveillance, and incoming missiles. It's a military apparatus weapon, and it indeed does exist. But it's only a theory. If you believe it exists, it's a theory, just like chemtrails. But if you don't believe that it exists, well then it exists, if that makes sense. Oh, I like this too. Fidel Castro has been back in the limelight, basically warning about a nuclear war between Israel, the West, and the East, with Iran and China and Russia in the background. And now he's coming out saying that he read the Bilderberg book by Daniel Esselin, which is all based on facts, but it's going to be titled Fidel Castro Fascinated by Book on Bilderberg Club. And it says Fidel Castro is showcasing a theory long popular both among the far left and far right. See, far left and far right. How about people that are anarchists or stateless or promoters of self-government? That the shadowy Bilderberg Group has become a kind of global government controlling not only international politics and economics, but even culture. The 84-year-old Cuban president published an article Wednesday that used the 3 of the only 8 pages in the Communist Party newspaper and quote largely verbatim from the 2000 book by Lithuanian-born Daniel Esselin. Esselin's work, Secrets of Bilderberg Group, argues that the international group largely runs the world. It has held a secretive annual forum of prominent politicians, thinkers, businessmen since it was founded in 1954 at the Bilderberg Group by ex-Nazi Prince Bernhard. Castro offered if I'm inaccurate about that, just correct me. Castro offered no comment on the excerpts other than to describe Esselin as honest and well-informed and to call his book a fantastic story. Well, yeah, it's not really a story, it's just a documentation of facts, but that's pretty cool. And Castro basically goes and talks about how he thinks that back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the powers that be were using drugs and rock music and all that to basically distract the people from what was really going on, which was pretty much a social revolution. But even that was staged, right? Even that counter-revolution, that counterculture was planned. So you wouldn't be surprised to hear this from a Gallup poll. In U.S., confidence in newspapers and TV news remains a rarity. No more than 25% say they have a, quote, great deal or quite a lot of confidence in either. And it says Washington, D.C., Americans continue to express their near record low confidence in newspapers and television news, with no more than 25% of Americans saying they have a, quote, great deal or quote, quite a lot of confidence in either. These views have hardly budged since falling more than 10% or 10 percentage points from 2003 to 2007. And you look here, for the first time ever, it says newspapers were above television news. Now, granted, newspapers tend to be a better credible source than television news. But they're both, for the most part, disinformation and not really working for the average individual who just wants to be informed with information so they can make better decisions. They tell you what they want you to think, and so yeah, a lot of people are disgusted with them. And that is, of course, a big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is reading mainstream propaganda and then I'm tearing it apart for you. And I hope that, I'm doing a good job at it. So, because it really does get to me reading these articles. I mean, I read them, but, I am thinking about how messed up it is. So, I appreciate you checking all these out. All right, moving on to the war on terror, liberty, sovereignty. Military deaths in Afghanistan under Obama topped those under Bush. In less than 2 years, the U.S. has suffered more combat deaths in Afghanistan under Obama than it did during the 2-year presidency of George W. Bush. And it says the latest casualty figure shows 577 American soldiers have died in the war from January 20th, 2009, the date of Obama's inauguration. And this, of course, is because what? They did the troop shuffle. They just shuffled troops from Iraq to Afghanistan. And so they can put out more propaganda like this. Goodbye, Iraq. Last U.S. combat brigade heads home. Yay! A line of heavily armored American military vehicles, their headlights twinkling in the pre-dawn desert, lumbered past the barbed wire and metal gates marking the border between Iraq and Kuwait early Thursday and rolled into history. So I guess that means it's all over, huh, guys? Despite new mission, U.S. troops still in the fight in Iraq. The U.S. troops will be in combat taking on Islamist militants in Iraq, even as the military moves to an advise and assist role with a smaller force. Advise and assist. That's like saying that that the people of Iraq have had no say in the future of their country in the past 7 years. Well, they haven't. The withdrawal of the last U.S. combat brigade on Thursday was hailed as a symbolic movement or emolument for the controversial American presence in Iraq more than 7 years since the invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein. And kind of the sad part about this whole thing is that we went over to Iraq and invaded Iraq for two reasons, right? Because of 9/11, which was what? Iraq had WMDs and Al-Qaeda was in Iraq, and Saddam Hussein in Iraq was responsible for 9/11. Those two reasons, big reasons, was they had WMDs and they were responsible for 9/11. And we found out that both were untrue. But it says, but while the remaining 50,000 troops will no longer have a formal combat mission after September 1st, they will be well armed and possibly coming under fire as they join in manhunts for al-Qaeda figures and other extremists. I don't think anybody has declared the end of the war. As far as I know, Pentagon Press Geoff Murrell told MSNBC. No, but this is just how they need to sway public opinion to get it out of sight, out of mind, like the BP oil disaster. And that advising and assisting that will be going on will basically be U.S. police departments around the world, along with state guards, doing training exercises in Iraq. So when they go back to their countries, they'll be nice and prepared for when the economy collapses and they can go and bust down door to door and confiscate guns and carry out checkpoints and put people and hog tie them and put bags over their heads and do all that fun stuff that's about freedom, right? This next story is kind of sad from NPR. Iraq war vet kills pregnant wife, daughter, and self. April Oles Magdaz was due to give birth to her second daughter on Wednesday, a little more than a year after she and her Iraq war veteran husband became new parents. And it says, but when Oles Magdaz's mother showed up that day at the couple's home in Superior, she found the entire family dead of an apparent murder-suicide. I guess this individual is from Wisconsin, and he was 23 years old, and he shot and killed his pregnant wife, their 13-year-old daughter, Lila, and their 3 dogs before turning the gun on himself. So this is the price of war. I hope it's worth it. This is a special report, the story of Obama, All in Company, Part 3. Please check this out. It's by Wade Manson. It's basically saying how the Obama and his family are all tied to the CIA. They've been working for the CIA in Indonesia, Hawaii, and whatnot. Pretty much what we already knew, besides him not being an actual citizen. But hey, he's our president. More Americans think Obama is Muslim. The number of Americans who think President Obama is a Muslim has significantly increased since his inauguration last year. The Pew Research Center has conducted a new national survey showing that nearly 1 in 5 Americans, or 18%, think Obama is a Muslim, up 11% in 2000. Going to keep blitzing forward here. Major study from the newsvine.com. Major study charts a long-lasting oil plume in Gulf. So after all the rhetoric we've been hearing about this, there's no oil, everything's good to go, the food's safe, a 22-mile long invisible mist of oil is meandering far below the surface of the Gulf of Mexico, where it will probably loiter for months or more, scientists reported Thursday, in the first conclusive evidence of an underwater plume from the BP oil spill. This is from August 19th. This is nearly 80% of Gulf oil spill still in water. Experts, nearly 80% of the oil spill from the BP well of the Gulf of Mexico is still in the Gulf. U.S. scientists have estimated, challenging a more optimistic assessment by the U.S. government early this month. Please check out the link for this article. The government lies to the American people about the safety of the Gulf oil food, basically saying that there's no oil, no smell of oil, it's good. But there is none because of the Corexit, but it still contains it. A lot of toxins and Powerful stuff. Finishing up on the eugenics, ADHD pesticide link confirmed. More evidence is emerging linking exposure to a pesticide while used in Australian agriculture to child cases of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Lastly, a former Delaware doctor charged with sexually assaulting more than 100 of his patients also may have given diluted or expired vaccines to children. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Have a good day.